Hello, homeschool mamas. Today I get to chat with Kelly from Simple Home Mom. And this is a very interesting conversation. It's all about on learning to be okay with mess. Can we become okay with a mess? I'll tell you that from experience, it took me a solid 2 decades to get there, and I must be okay because on the other side of this wall is my kid. Fully unclean, no dishes washed, all sorts of mess. And I am definitely more comfortable with it. And if you had known me way back when, you wouldn't think so. Hey, Kelly, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you
So
doing?
I'd like to say so good to see you, but I cannot see you. There you are. Hey.
Can you see me now?
Yes, I can. So tell me,
Okay.
how is it that we can become comfortable with mess? Because I think for me, it has been just a process of constantly being exposed to mess.
I think for me it's similar too, just
Yeah,
being exposed over and over and just getting used to it. My husband, he works.
yeah.
Um, he's he's not as far along in the journey as I am, so I'm always encouraging him, like we live here, there's always going to be mess and routines are good and everything, but it really is. And like your book goes into, it's like figuring out what your triggers are and like
Mhm.
realizing that a lot of it has to do with our hearts and ourselves, not the actual mess too. So, yeah. So I'm going to share 5 ways to become at ease with mess today. We're going to
Okay, you
chat
go,
about that
girl.
whenever. Right, I'll go, girl. Okay. So the first thing to become at ease with mess for number one is our expectation. So
Mm,
our
yeah.
our are our expectations in check? Do we expect it to be like perfectly tidy at all times?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Oops.
I was totally in that place too.
Yeah.
Like I assumed like everything had to be like super tidy all day long. And I think it was my third kid that I was like, I can't do
Yeah.
this. Like I'm burning out
Me
and
too.
this is not, yeah,
The
maybe
magical
two.
third child. Yeah.
Yeah, the magical third child. Maybe with the second, I was managing it. It was all tidy by the end of the day, but like the third child, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
Done.
really checking into our expectations of like, is this realistic to have this expectation to have it perfectly tidy all day long? And even when we go to bed, like, our house, we do have like daily routines, but the house isn't perfectly tidy even
Hmm.
when we go to bed, depending on the day too, right? So, checking into our expectations. The second thing is have less slash
Yes.
declutter slash do something about it, because maybe we do have too much. Like I know we periodically declutter. I usually
Yeah.
do it like during December. December
Oh,
for us is a
December.
great, yeah,
Before
because,
Christmas and all the new gifts that are coming in. Is that the motivation?
I think that's the motivation. Plus, our school is a little bit more lower key in December, and it's a really
Okay.
great time for me to like go room by room and be like, and just do that maintenance declutter. Because obviously, that's going to help being more at ease with mess if you know that everything in your home has purpose
Yes.
and value. Instead of, we've got like extra train tracks flying around, and I'm like, I need to declutter probably about half of it.
Yeah.
So then at least then I know, okay, they've got exactly what they need and love and play with versus, all kinds of extra mess. So that's the second thing is, do something about it, declutter and have less because that is going to help too.
Yeah.
Anything
Definitely.
you'd like to add?
Yeah, no, when it comes to that, I actually just was writing a post or rewriting a post that I spoke to about exactly that. My intention to live my life on purpose and simplify. And I actually thought, though, that getting rid of all my stuff was the way to do it. And I learned that no, I don't have to get rid of all the stuff. In fact, it's impossible to get rid of all the stuff, even if I didn't have kids. Although when you're traveling, you can do it. But when you're not traveling, you have kids, you have stuff, you have to decide, do I use the stuff? And if you're using the stuff, it's good stuff. You don't need to get rid of it. But if you have all this, I don't know, truth, I have 2 totes of baby clothes downstairs, and I'm really sure that my teenage girls are not going to be using them anytime
Yeah.
soon. And so it really should be something I give away, and my heart is attached to them. But the majority of the things that I own, I use or I get rid of it.
Yeah, that's a great way to become more at ease with mess is assessing what we have for
Yeah.
sure. So the next thing is focus on being at ease with mess is to focus on smaller areas when it's getting to you. So for me, we're in the middle of like a basement build right now, and our homeschooling room is well, our homeschooling places are in three different areas. It does bother me some because
Hmm.
disorganization can affect my mind. Like we all have different reasons
Yes.
for it affecting us, and I know why I'm affected by it. But during those disorganization stages, because we all have those times in our life, like having a new baby, you can't stay on top of things because you have a baby. But during those seasons, focusing on smaller areas to keep like tidy. Bonnie Landry talks about this too. She like talks about just keeping our bedroom tidy when she had babies, but that's the same for me too, is like focus on areas like for us, it's the kitchen,
Yeah.
it's my bedroom, and it's the dishes.
Yeah.
Those are the three areas that I focus on during harder seasons and just kind of mentally be like, okay, the main floor, the living room, wherever else is going to just be let go a bit for now until things come back around. And yeah, I like focusing on those smaller areas. And yeah, that's what I find really helpful for us. And being at ease with the mess that is in those different areas, but having some, order in those other areas that we can tackle in that season of life.
I honestly thought that I would have a tidier house because I was homeschooling, because I was at home and homeschooling. And I learned that is very much not the case because it turns out we use all the spaces. And I actually have a homeschool room too. It's not
Yeah.
under any, change, but I don't use it for homeschooling. I use it to store books as per common for a lot of homeschool families. And it's a beautiful room. And we sit in the great room and we sit and do our studies there, or we'll go outside and sit with the goats or all sorts of different areas that we'll do different things. But I definitely have learned that the idea of keeping it clean isn't a thing. You just have to create routines and actually get into a habit of a routine so you know it actually eventually gets clean and you can keep the social worker away.
Yeah, that's true. Having those routines are so key. I recently started to bring in for our home a Friday blitz tidy, I call it.
Yeah.
I love blitz tidying. Like one of my favorite things to do is like tidy in
Yeah.
peace with like audiobooks. Like I just love it, making a sweat, like tidying and oh my goodness, I'm like that. But I started to do it on Friday. My husband will put the kids to bed or get them ready to bed, and I'll just go at it just to like reset everything. Like the stuff that needs to go back to their
Yes.
rightful places because we that's what piles up for us during the week are things that we don't get to. Like the daily routines have, the surface level stuff, but then the stuff piles up. So I'm like, I can now be at ease way more with the mess, knowing that nope, Friday is our Blitz tidy time. And I get like pumped up for it. Like, Blitz Friday is tomorrow. Like, I'm excited because we've been doing it now for a month. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to keep this. This is so awesome. I love it. And that way, if I start being like, getting stressed by a bit of mess there, I'm like, no, no, no. Friday's coming, or I can remind my husband, don't worry, tomorrow's Blitz Friday tidy. I'm going to tackle it tomorrow. And oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Anyways, that's something little that we've added to our routine because we were noticing we were getting frustrated with that little bit of extra add-on stuff. And my husband, he's like, we need to work on more routines and cleaning with the kids and tidying. And I'm like, one thing at a time.
No pressure. Yeah,
I
and
was
I
like,
mean, it
that's
does naturally
temporary.
happen as they get a bit older. It does happen, and you include them in it more. I know that
Yes.
my oldest was in awe that my youngest child, and so I have four kids. My youngest didn't know how to do the dishes fully before he was 5 or 6 because she did. And the
Yeah.
firstborn usually knows how to do most of the things, and then the
Yeah.
youngest one kind of tags along and does a few little things, but they can all do something and participate.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a slow and steady process
Yes,
too. And I'm a big
exactly.
fan of too of looking at what my kids are really good with too, because my oldest is very much like fixes things and
Hmm.
fetches things. So
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, can you feed the cats? Can you grab this? Can you take out the compost? But if it's like something super focused, he's not into it. So I try to remember that too. But my 5-year-old, I'm like, give him a vacuum cleaner. He's all for it. So
Nice.
we go with that. Yeah. And then the fourth thing to become at ease with mess is just creating boundaries when we tidy and clean, because we are kind of already talking about this, but really creating specific boundaries around when you tidy and clean is so key, because when we're homeschooling, the last thing I want to be thinking about is like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at the kitchen. I've got to do the kitchen and homeschool now. So knowing that, nope, I touch the kitchen after supper. That's what we do now, is just
Mm-hmm.
after supper, full clean tidy. I can tell myself, like, I know it bugs me a little, I'm acknowledging it, but also, no, no, no. We have routines in place and those boundaries so that we have good balance in our day. Because
Yeah,
I used to spend all day like tidying up with
exactly.
and after the
Yeah,
kids, and like that was my whole day, and
yeah.
that didn't feel good. So it's just really good to create boundaries or routines around when we clean and tidy.
Yeah, almost, or values, and decide what is really important. One time when I was sweeping and I was kind of angrily sweeping, like, I can't believe I have to sweep. And my husband came in and he's like, okay, I was premenstrual. So he was really walking carefully when he should have probably not engaged me. But I was sweeping and I was unhappy that I was sweeping. And he said, well, you don't have to sweep. And I said, well, of course I have to sweep. Who's going to sweep? And so he said, well, if you're going to do it, then maybe like do it intentionally, do it on purpose. And there was
Mhm.
something, he was wise the way he said it and his tone and everything, and something clicked in me. I don't have to sweep. I could live in a house without it being swept, but I
Yeah,
do value it. So because I value it, I need to set aside a certain amount of time a week. I will not sweep every day, but
yeah,
a week, and decide when or where, who does it, because we all do different things during the week, but we can decide if it's important, then do it. But recognize that it'll get dirty about an hour after minimum. It'll be back to the same spot, but you know that it's clean. You value that
yeah.
it's clean, but you have other things you want to do as well. So then you intentionally go do those things as well as sweep for 10 minutes.
Yeah, so good. And then the last thing for being at ease with mess, we've been kind of like talking about this throughout the whole conversation so far, but like having little sayings to tell yourself, like I know I tell myself often, like we live here, we
Yeah,
play here.
exactly.
This is not a show home. Like only a show home is in a perfect home, and like just like saying things to remind myself when my brain is like, messy, disorganized. Wait a minute. No, no, I'm going to tackle that later today. Like homeschooling is more important right now in this moment. And just like kind of like pep talking yourself and reminding you of what reality is versus being consumed by the disorganization, which to be
Right.
honest, like I said, was happening to me today. Like my brain
Yeah.
was like, it's a disaster in our homeschooling spot right now because we don't really have a homeschooling spot. Stuff is everywhere. The kids are getting into everything, but we're in the middle of something. I'm like, no, no, we're in the middle of renovations and this is only
Yes.
temporary. We're doing our best with what we've got right now and it's going to get better. We're going to get more organized. So I like have to like mentally like talk through that. And I
Yes.
know you're big, like your whole book is talking about that, like being
Yeah.
aware of ourselves.
Perspective. Yeah.
So those are the
Reframing your
five,
perspective. Yeah.
yeah. So those are the 5 ways to become at ease with mess that I shared.
Beautiful.
Hmm.
Beautiful. And as a reminder, I'm a mom that just graduated my second daughter, who's a homeschool high schooler, and she graduated. She's in college now. And for the last 6 months, this kiddo always left her stuff out. So there's her, her science textbooks, and then now there's her journal, and there's stuff everywhere. She's very focused, very scheduled, very academic oriented, but kind of scattered in where her stuff is. And I was annoyed, and I was like, oh, can we just put this away? Or I'd put it on the stairs again, and then someone would say, it's on the stairs, it's not safe. And so there was always this discussion about her stuff being scattered. But I kept telling myself, she's leaving. And when it's tidy, she's gone. And though I'm
Hmm.
probably to a lot of moms that are listening right now, it seems like a very, very far distance in the future. Yes, it is. And it definitely happens overnight. It feels like it happens overnight. And so, actually, the sign that you've got a very active, happy homeschooling life, a very full, rich life, is that you have a lot of stuff in a lot of places. And so, it's a beautiful, messy homeschool life.
I love that encouragement. Thank
Yeah.
you.
It
That's
was
so
such
good.
a pleasure chatting with you today, all the way across the East Coast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was lovely talking again. Thanks for
Yes.
having me.
And if anybody has any ideas or thoughts or comments and they want to throw it into the comments section down below, we'd be happy to respond. It's such a pleasure to meet everybody, and I hope you have a good homeschool day.
All right.
Okay, talk
Take
to you
care. See
soon.
you later. Bye.